All righty, I think we're going to get started. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jacinta Harmon, and I am the VP of Clinical Services here at Marvin Behavioural Health. On behalf of Marvin, I am honoured to welcome you to this important conversation on women in healthcare. We're here today because women make up the backbone of our healthcare system, serving as leaders, caregivers, innovators, and advocates. Yet we continue to face unique challenges, pressures, barriers that often go unseen. At Marvin, our mission is here to support the well-being of healthcare professionals, and that includes shining the light on the experiences of women who are navigating demanding roles while also carrying a weight of expectation, burnout, and inequity. Today is a webinar that is focused on an opportunity to kind of elevate those voices, share some real stories, discuss actionable strategies, and also to connect as a community connected and committed to change. I want you to very much welcome our panelists. With me is Randy Renato. Randy is a registered nurse and services as the manager of wellbeing and resilience at Novant Health, where she leads nursing-focused initiatives with the Department of Wellbeing and Resiliency. Dr. Micah Sasta is an MD, and she is a surgeon based in San Jose in California. Dr. Sasta spends much of her time devoted to how to elevate physician wellness, which is essential not just for her colleagues, but also for the health and wealth of the entire system. And then also Dr. Melanie Spencer Wolf. Dr. Wolf is a physician at Providence Mission Hospital in California. She has been instrumental in helping her organization see that healthcare well-being is not just about the individual's resilience, but also about like systematic supports, mental health access, peer support. And I want to say this from my heart that all of the three women who are here today with me have been amazing to work with, have been just wonderful advocates, have worked alongside Marvin in making sure that we are providing the best services that we can and also working with us tirelessly to ensure support for their peers. So welcome, ladies. Wendy, would you like to just quick say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Like Jacinta said, my name is Wendy. I am a nurse, and my second shift involves two twin 16-year-old boys, one of which has special needs, and then a 10-year-old boy, as well as my fiance and a lot of animals and other people in my home that I take care of. But just really happy to be here with this group.
Micah?
Hi, it is such a pleasure and honor to be here and be together with all of you on the path of what it is to be our best selves in medicine every day. And I think every day that's changing. Um, I'm a mom, a human, a fur baby mom of many, um, uh, parenting up and parenting down, knowing neurodiversity and raising neurodiverse, children and what that experience is like. And also working with the health and wellness of our entire health and hospital system, which um, has really been a profound opportunity for transformation for myself.
Thanks. Melanie?
Hi, everybody. Melanie Wolf, an internal medicine physician by training, recovering hospitalist. I was a hospitalist for about 20 years. And as a result of the fallout of COVID and significant burnout, I have transitioned to an administrative role as the chief medical officer at Mission Hospital in Mission Viejo. And because of my own experience with burnout and trying to be a full-time physician and a full-time mom, the mental health of our medical staff was a priority for me. And it's just truly an honor and a privilege to be able to gather a group of women in healthcare and discuss common stresses and how we can get through it. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for those wonderful explanations on how your lives kind of relate into this topic that we're discussing today, which we have fondly termed the second shift. So I wonder if we could start out with the idea of what would be one truth that describes how you feel balancing work and home, that you wish that other people knew or that other people understood. Micah, would you like to start?
Sure. I think balance is a difficult word because it explains as if there's a possibility of splitting oneself into a million different fragments. And I think for me, it's really become about sustainability and living just one life, just one 24-hour, just one human soul. And how do I manifest that existence from my values instead of fragmenting myself into a million impossible demands? I think that's the word that tends to come up when I look at it that way. Impossible.
Oh my goodness, that is a perfect explanation because you do feel fragmented. When you're at work, your child is homesick and you want to be your best self at work, and then your child's at home and you want to be your best self at home. Melanie, did you have any thoughts on what you feel would be something that you wish people understood?
You cannot do this alone. That you can't do it all by yourself. There and don't have that expectation. I could not have raised two boys and worked full time without significant partnership from my spouse, from my in-laws, from neighbors. Uh, it literally takes a village, and that's okay. And it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to recognize that you can't do it all. And getting help is what's going to get you through.
Yeah, and that isn't just help from your family and friends, but also maybe help from, I don't know, a spiritual advisor, a therapist, somebody that you can talk to at work, your EAP. You know, you can't be your best self if you don't feel like a whole person.
Whoever that support system is that works for you, there's no right or wrong,
Yeah,
but just recognizing that you can't do it alone, you shouldn't do it alone, and that's okay.
that's a wonderful thing to acknowledge and say out loud. How about you, Wendy?
The one truth I wish people would know or think about is, I feel like this invisible load that we carry as women after we've worked and we come home, like you said, the second shift. For many years, I saw that as a weakness. Like I felt like it was a detractor from my career. And I really wish people would see themselves as the fact that it's really a superpower because we've learned to juggle work, home, people's emotions, all the things, and we're juggling that with grace and empathy. And so it's not a weakness, it's really a superpower as a woman to be able to do those things and do them well. So I wish that would be my wish that more people would know that truth, that it's more of a superpower.
I love that. It is a superpower. You're right. We're multitaskers supreme. So we talked about this a little earlier, but like, are there non-negotiables, like things that you protect no matter what or how full your life is?
For me, when I was at the bedside when my kids were younger, the non-negotiable was not working and with my kids. Um, and that meant giving up vacations with my husband, just the two of us. It meant giving up time just for me. And it meant not having any extra space outside of working kids. So in some respects, that now that my kids are grown, there is some, I don't want to say regret because I can only make decisions at that time based on the information that I had. But at that time, the focus really was whatever free time I had outside of work had to be with the kids. And um, and that that worked out okay in the end. I probably added a fair amount of stress because I didn't allow myself that free time, that time for me. But at the time, that was my non-negotiable, and it made sense for me then.
Yeah. How about you, Wendy?
Yeah, my non-negotiables honestly change depending on the stage of life my children and my family was in. I was a single mom for 12 years, and so my non-negotiables when the kids were little was just be there, just show up, do bath time, do dinner, be present when I was there, just like Melanie just said. And then now, that my children are a little older and I'm engaged, date nights a non-negotiable for me. Making sure that I am attending anything with school and sports. If my child works super hard to make a sports team, then I want to be at as many, games as I can be. But really it's that like one-on-one time with them, one-on-one time with my fiance, and just putting work truly aside and not continuously being pulled in both directions. So no matter what the stage was, just making sure that I was either in one place or the other as much as I possibly could be.
And how about you, Micah?
It's hard for me to say just one. I think the concept of being present is really critical. And I don't mean just like showing up, but being present with my heart and my soul in those moments, because it is, and I spent a long time of my career being managed by my task list, by the impossible list of everything that I had to get done every single day, and finding myself grinding through that. And when I was with work, I was still thinking about all the things I had to do with my kids. And when I was with my kids, sometimes I was still thinking about all the things I had to do with work. And that mindset really prevented me from, I was at bath time, but maybe I wasn't like able to really engage with and capture in my heart and feel that joy of being present with those, childlike eyes. And so I think allowing myself to really be present is the critical thing, and saying to myself every single day, even if it's just for a moment, where am I today? Not like what am I doing, but what am I being? And really having that 1 minute check in, whether it's just in the car as I'm arriving at work or kind of shifting roles, but am I deeply present with what I am doing at that moment?
I love that. Kind of grounding yourself in some mindfulness. We have a raised hand. Sophie had a question. Is Sophie there? I'm not sure, but we can't hear Sophie, but I guess the best thing to do would be maybe type your question in the chat and then we could kind of answer that. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk just a little bit about, because I heard, what I feel like I heard was that there was maybe feelings of guilt there, trying to be all things to all people. Um, is that something that everybody on the call has kind of learned to let go of, or is it still there in the background?
It,
Go
for
ahead.
me, it really goes back to actually Micah's point. My and I had said earlier in our pre-discussion that I think I spent the first 10 years of my oldest son's life in a perpetual state of guilt.
Yeah.
But once I decided that to be present, so when I'm at work, knowing my kids are taken care of, I'm going to be present at work. I'm not going to rush this. I'm actually going to try to enjoy my patient interaction, and I'm going to be fully present. And try the same at home, to be fully present. My patients have been signed out to somebody else. They're okay. I'm going to be fully. Once I decided to be present and fully engaged with my career when I was there, my family when I was there, it really helped defray the guilt. Um, Instead of feeling at work, I've got to rush, I've got to get home, or being at home and thinking about that patient. Did I order that CT scan? Did I follow up on the CT scan? Really just trying to be present and try to enjoy both aspects of my life really helped calm the guilt for me.
Yeah. How about you, Wendy?
Yeah, I used to say I was the queen of mom guilt, and I wore my heavy crown proudly. And what helped me sort of reframe that, because my guilt would not only just be about work when I was away from the kids, but it'd also be about self-care. So if I happened to take a nap or happened to go get a massage, I would just have so much guilt that I wouldn't even enjoy the activity. And what I realized is that the people around me didn't know that I needed those things because I always showed up and it looked like I was 100% to them. Like they always got 100% of me. So when I needed something, they're like, what, why? So when I learned to be vulnerable with them and say, you know what, I'm running on empty. Like I'm exhausted. I need rest. I need whatever it might be. That's when I started to feel less guilt because the people around me were able to say, well, let me show how much I love you by taking care of you, which is what you do for us every day. So that's really what helped me with the guilt. I mean, it still creeps in, don't get me wrong. I'm sure it will forever. But just knowing that by being vulnerable with them and letting them see the true me and not the superhuman, I'm always 100%, that really, really helped me.
Mom to the rescue.
That's right.
How about you, Micah?
I think for me, like a very intentional holding of the dialectical, like the truth is really helpful. Like
Mm.
conflict is going to be inevitable in our roles because it is a full-time role to be the chief mom officer and the chief medical officer, the chief everything officer, and the chief executive officer. I feel like these are always there. And so how do you kind of hold them both with like a loving awareness? Um, I also think for me it was really important to think about the difference between guilt, which is feeling like I'm out of alignment with my values, um, and shame, which is feeling like I don't belong because I'm not doing enough. And especially in a culture of the system or medicine, sometimes it's easy to feel like you're not enough because you are not showing up in a way that this culture expects you to be. And quite frankly, you can't be everything to a system. You can't be everything to a family. You can't be everything to everyone. You can really only be a best at your best. You're a representation of that little glowing kernel of your true self that is inside of you. And it can be manifest in all those different ways. But I think kind of intentionally living in that tension um, allows for you to kind of hold it and then move forward from what's truly inside of you and your real energy source.
That's fabulous. Thank you. We have a question in the chat, a couple of questions, but you know, Melinda says, I'm a single mom and I have been for 14 years. Any tips, suggestions on how to shake the feeling of never being enough? And I think we talked about that a wee bit. When I'm at work, I feel like I'm not good enough because I'm pulling in longer hours. And when I'm home being a mom, I struggle feeling like I should be giving more at work and not being good enough there. And then Juliana said, was it difficult to set those boundaries for life and work balance? So let's just, let's think about Melinda, a single mom. Any advice that you guys would give Melinda as a single mom? Anyone?
You're doing your best and it will be okay. And I'm at a point now with my kids that I can now have some hindsight about where you are. And I can tell you now with this hindsight, um, your kids will, or your child will appreciate the sacrifices you've made and be very, very proud of you. And that's what I recognize now is that my kids appreciate the sacrifices that were made. They understand that my work contributes to the community in a meaningful way and has allowed them to have the life that they've had, and they're very proud of their mom. Um, and so it's hard right now, but give it 4 years when he or she's off to college, and they will be very, very proud of you, and you will know that your best was good enough.
I would add offering yourself grace. So that's something that I had to learn. And the other thing that really helped me with the guilt about being a single mom and having to work so much is I tried to keep my circle a little small, but I surrounded my kids with people that I knew loved them just as much as I did. So when I was at work, they were being loved and they were being fed and they were probably being spoiled more than I would have if I was home. So I really tried to focus on, who was it in their lives that were loving them and showing up for them, even in the times where I couldn't do that. And that made me feel better about the guilt about being at work and growing my career.
That's a really good idea, like did you make your circle smaller so that the people who are in your circle, you trust them, they'll love your children, you giving them the most precious package in your life, which is your children. And so yeah, that's a really good coping strategy, I think, or a skill maybe to just ask for help as Melanie was talking about earlier, because you can't do it by yourself. The other part of the question that was in there, was it hard for anyone on the panel to kind of set those balances, to say enough's enough, things have to change?
Absolutely. I can definitely speak to that. I mean, I think there were a series of events that happened in my life that really forced my hand, whether that was, having a child diagnosed with a pretty significant difference that required real love and attention, whether that was being diagnosed with a chronic illness. It really, it really called me to what is where the rubber hits the road, right? And for me, that was really coming to this place where I can say, like, actually, you're enough. Like, it's enough that you get up every morning and you breathe and you show up. Like, let's just be honest. Like, that is enough to have a full human life. And there are all these other rules and layers that we put on top of it and expectations. I would say working with a coach was one of the smartest things that I did. It didn't take too long before my coach said to me, I come from a multiple religious background, but one of my backgrounds is in Christianity. And he said to me, Micah, what would it take for you to be on the prayer list? And I said, well, I'm not going to be on the prayer list. And he said, well, let's think about that. Like in every major religious tradition where you have a seed planted, there is bidirectionality. And like whether that's getting your feet washed or accepting the rice water bowl or whatever your tradition is, um, it's both ways. And you're enough. You can receive. And it was absolutely mind-blowing to me, to have that awakening, if you will.
Yeah,
I laughed just because, go ahead, Wendy, go ahead.
yeah, I would just add, for me, I had to start really small. Like I think of it like a dial, and I had to start like 10%. Just really small, like even just a goal of turning my phone off at 6 p.m. and just doing that for a month. Like I had to set really small goals. I shouldn't call them small because they ended up being big, but achievable goals, in order to get more me in my life, get more life inside of my life. So I just had to start little and just work my way up. Like it wasn't a switch for me that I just flipped and suddenly I had all this self-care in my life and had balance. It definitely wasn't. It was more of a dial that I just slowly turned up.
And that gets easier, to your point, Wendy, as the kids get a little older, right? When the kids become a little bit more independent, when you can have a rational, logical, reasonable discussion with your kids so that they can understand your point of view. And it makes it easier to set those boundaries. It's very, very hard when they're young. That for me was the hardest, the hardest time, because they don't understand. And that's when the guilt for me was at its peak. But as my kids got older and more independent and I can have these conversations with them, it did allow me to um, add various activities at work to make my work more interesting, or allowed me to maybe go get a cup of coffee with a friend on a Saturday. So it gets easier once you can have that dialogue with your kids, I think.
We have, thank you for that. Sally has her hand up. Sally, did you have a question? No? Okay. Sorry, Sally, we can't hear you. If you want to put a question in the chat, we will be happy to address it. So, I'm thinking about your younger selves and the advice that maybe that you could give people, because there's all different age groups of people who've joined this webinar today. And in life, unexpected things happen. So, if you were to think about maybe initially a negative thing in your life, you were able to turn that around and make it be a positive. How could we, speaking of children, how could we make lemonades into, lemons into lemonade?
For me, especially as I was coming out of training, and had to figure out how, because I had my oldest when I was a resident. And as I was coming out of training and thinking about how can I find a balance, I thought being in an office setting Monday through Friday um, would give me that balance that I was missing as a resident, with long hours and very few days off. But what I found in the office was that it wasn't giving me that balance, and recognized an opportunity to transition into the hospital, which would give me a chunk of time where I was working, but then a chunk of time to be off. And that worked for me for a long time. It really allowed, um, I joked with my brother one day that gives me a balance. I've got a week on, a week off. And he said, your life isn't a balance, your life is a pendulum. You're swinging from extremes, which was true. It was swinging from extremes. Work, 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 and then no work, just kids. And that worked for me for a long time. That schedule worked for my family for a long time. And then I recognized that I needed a schedule again that was more synchronicitous with my family. And so I transitioned back to a more Monday through Friday job. So it's recognizing that you have choice, recognizing that there is some flexibility, that there will always be a need for women in healthcare. There are always jobs available for women in healthcare, and it's just finding what works for you in whichever chapter you are in your life and your family's life.
How about you, Micah?
I smile because Melanie, I have the same thing written down about chapters. I think, coming out of med school as like the ultimate achiever, I think I was like, oh, it's jump a hoop, jump a hoop, jump a hoop, do the next thing, check the box, task master. And then as I settled in, I was like, wow, this is a novel. This is a marathon. There are many chapters and each one has a different theme. And it's not, crush, 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 go, 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 which might be like an external influence that I was feeling. But like maybe this is my chapter about motherhood, or this is my chapter about getting pregnant, staying pregnant, dealing with fertility and fertility. Maybe this is my chapter on learning what it's like to parent all of my children. Maybe this is my chapter on becoming fully human. What does it mean to be a patient and a physician, and finding strength and synchronicity in like both of those roles? And so I think, really turning towards that, allowing myself to write those chapters instead of having this other mindset of what that was going to be like, allowed me to kind of take those lemons that I felt like I was accumulating and be like, the problem, it's not a problem, it's part of the path. It's part of the chapter. It's part of the beautiful human life that you're weaving. Um, so yeah, the chapter part of it really resonates.
And sometimes I call it chapter for me. Sometimes I call it a season, right? To
Yes.
everything, there is a season,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
whether you want to call it a season or a chapter, it's the same kind of idea. It's all part of your story. And not every time period in your life will be the same and look the same. And you learn as you go. It's on the job learning.
Yeah.
It is.
Sally raised her hand again, so I'm wondering if we can hear you now, Sally. No, I'm not sure why we can't hear Sally, but in the meantime, one anonymous participant said, I'm hoping that the panel will speak to how to navigate pressure from your organization to engage in activities outside of normal business hours, which conflicts with the very important second shift home life responsibilities, and in a context in which you still want to excel and progress in your career. Any thoughts on that? Really how to say no gracefully, I think.
Yeah, it goes back to you can't be all things to all people all the time. Um, and the goal for me was to be part of an organization that respected my time and respects my time outside of work. I have to say I'm grateful to Providence for that. They are very protective of your time outside of work. Um, I would say that that's not an easy one. But I would suggest that again, you have to figure out your non-negotiables. And if your non-negotiables are when I am not at work, my focus is my family, my spouse, my significant other, my children. That will never be a wrong decision. That will never be a wrong decision. Work will always be there. And if it's not this work, it's some other work, but work will always be there. You don't get this time back. Um, and if your family is your priority, then it's your priority.
Yeah.
Agree with that. I think staying really focused on what's your core value, whether that's family, integrity, whatever that is for you, because you're going to have leaders that those don't match. I mean, that's just the reality. You're going to interact with a leader and work for a leader where those values don't match. And like Melanie said, sometimes you just have to shift. And I had to do that in my career, make a really tough call and shift. And that's just what I had to do because it just did not align with what I knew was my purpose, which was not just being a nurse, it was also being a mom. So,
Any insights, Micah?
I think, it really was helpful for me to speak with other women or parents who are in similar situations within my department or within my group, and create like a psychologically safe space to be able to kind of share those experiences. Like, actually, it's really hard to have grand rounds at 6 p.m. Or 7 a.m. on Monday morning. I think naming invisible work, or work outside of work is really important. It for me required, like, I wouldn't do it for me, right? Like, because I would discount myself, especially early on. I'd be like, well, you can do that. But if I was hearing one of my dear friends say, like, well, I'm missing dinner like 4 nights out of the week, and this is my fifth night to miss it, I'd say, hey, that's not okay for you. And collectively, we would come to an understanding that unapologetically, it's okay to have an existence that doesn't match with the expectations. And collectively, we could find the ability to say, hey, she's not here, and I'll give her the down low from the meeting. And we're not going to apologize for not showing up at 6 p.m. when we have a sick kid and we're going to urgent care. Like, that's how love is showing up right now. The same commitment that's bringing me to medicine is taking me to my family right now. But for me, it was really finding those like-minded people, which wasn't necessarily the majority, that I could allow myself permission to begin to do that and kind of have a sense of community about it.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat which I think kind of ties nicely into what we're talking here. It's from Caitlin, and she says, I'm also a single mom of two, my oldest with autism. My family lives in other states and I'm lacking a village. Are there any resources or supports that you have found that weren't your immediate friends and family? I find that working 10 hours, raising these kids, and, you know, just keeping up with the household doesn't leave much time for finding a village on my own.
And I so feel for you. That's tough. And kudos to you that you're
Yeah.
doing this. You're clearly strong and determined. I think that oftentimes there are friends who are just like family. Um, there are neighbors that are just like family. I think that there's no right or wrong in terms of who you bring into your life, who loves you, loves your kids, and who you trust. And it's just creating that community. And that could be maybe from church or from your religious community. It could be from a group of moms in the neighborhood or a group of moms at school who trade off carpooling or babysitting. So I think there are ways to get support outside of family. And it's creating we call a second shift, maybe a second family of people in your community who can understand and relate and help support.
And, you know, another thought I had while you were talking, Melanie, was the idea of, you know, there are online groups. You know, if you are home with your children and they're sleeping at nighttime, sometimes in the evening, there are online resources. And Caitlin, if you want to email into Marvin Behavioral Health, maybe I could, you know, send you out a list of supports that you can get online, which maybe you could do at nighttime when the kids are sleeping.
The other thing I
I,
would say, Caitlin, is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, Wendy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I had to find support in the sometimes the oddest places. And in order to do that, I had to be vulnerable. So, one was that my child's daycare. I basically just started crying one day because I needed to go to work and I had no one. And the daycare provider was like, "Why don't I just come to your house and keep them while you go to work?" We ended up being friends, fast friends after that. And the other was my babies were in the NICU. They were born very, very early, and one baby needed to go home, and one baby needed to stay in the NICU. And I was distraught over the fact that I couldn't be in two places. And a primary nurse for my baby was like, "I'll come to your house and keep your baby." And I'm like, "What?" And so, you know, had I not sort of broke down and expressed how concerned and lost I was, I don't know that I would have gotten that support from those two people who I definitely wouldn't have asked at any point. I would have asked for their help, but because they saw that in me, they, you know, stepped up and helped, and we stayed connected for years, and still are. So I think, you know, finding connections where you can, but also showing that you're not, you know, that you do need help, because I think that's hard for us as women to show that. We want to put that facade up that we have it all together. And so people think we do. And so the people around us are like, "Wow, look at her go. She's got this all together." Well, really, you're like, "Man, I could use a hand at this point." So.
That
That
is,
had to be really, yeah. I was going to say, it had to be really hard to just hand your newborn baby over to
yeah.
somebody
Oh,
you didn't know.
absolutely. It was very hard. And I didn't have any other choice. And I did know her because she'd been his nurse in the NICU, but yeah, it was very hard.
Any other thoughts? Anyone?
I was reminded, I received an assignment from a coach who said, by the next session, I want you to have identified and reached out to two people in different parts of your life who would be willing to step in for you and take care of your kids when your husband is traveling. If something happened and you got stuck at work, or someone was sick, etc. And I was like, that's impossible. And it was a beautiful task because it required me to begin to lean into who was around me, and really identify people, which I hadn't really pushed into yet. So I was very grateful for that. I think at work, it can be helpful to transform some of the times that you have downtime, like your lunch times, into opportunities if you get a lunch. I know I don't always, but if you do, like, could it look like a walk with someone? Could it look like a real conversation? Could you join like a commensality group or a group where you discuss values in medicine? Because connecting with people in that way can be very helpful. The last thing I would share with you is that online, I have found connection for neurodiversity in groups like Bright and Quirky out of Seattle, where they have parent coaching groups for parents who are raising differently wired children. And it's been very helpful to find community that is very specific in that way. I'm sure there are other resources available, but that's just an example of one way that I found support for that particular dimension of my life.
Oh, thank you for that resource. That's wonderful. What did you call that little website?
It's called Bright and Quirky, and they've just transformed the name. It's a woman, Debbie out of Seattle, who is an expert in raising neurodiverse kids and supporting parents on that process, focusing on uh, not the deficiencies, but the strengths and bringing people together. It was really transformative for me.
So two questions in the chat. Christine, what system changes have you seen to support women in healthcare? And what additions or changes do you think would be most beneficial? And then the second one from Beth is, I appreciate the panelists being open with your stories. I have comfort in not being alone in these feelings. Is there any way to improve meaning in work lives with patient care in the hospital and then find balance with the shift work? Wendy, any thoughts?
Um, so I think there's a lot of new work around how do we support women in healthcare, or just parents, people in general. I know we're talking about women today, but all people have different schedules, right? We've put these 12-hour shifts on people for quite some time, and we're now realizing that that doesn't work for everybody. So starting to look at how we can staff differently, and meet people where they are, and offer short shifts. We call them princess shifts, but short shifts and things like that to offer some other availability, I think is really important. One of the things that we're doing is offering spaces inside the facilities where people can disconnect, and go into a well-being pod or a meditation pod, massage chair, things like that, so that at least when they're at work, they can get a little well-being boost, to get them through that longer shift. I do think there's still a long way to go. I mean, to be 100% transparent, I think there's still a long way to go to get people really in a place where they can feel good about work and home life. But I do think we've moved forward a lot since when I became a nurse over 20 years ago.
Nice. Micah, have there been any changes where you are?
Oh yeah, huge changes. We have a huge push to destigmatize mental health concerns and reach out for support. We know that healthcare workers are among the most resilient when they begin their training, and they become among the most at risk for mental health challenges as well as suicidality. And that is through no fault of our own. That is just part of our existence. And so turning towards that very intentionally and with caring and with resources and support is a huge step that I have seen made in the last several years. And for me, I think it comes down to being fully human. We are not the doctor, the nurse. We are a fully human individual, just as our patients are. And we may be the patient, right? We may be the mom. We may be all of these things. And allowing for that full humanity, which is really our strength. And as I believe Wendy, you said, like our superpower. That is our full human self showing up. It is not okay to be like the other. I'm the doctor, I'm the nurse, I'm showing up to do this role. That's not what makes us great at taking care of people. It's showing up as the full human self. And I do see signs that that is an awareness that is growing within our system of medicine. Yeah.
I agree. I think that there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go. I compare medicine to the military in many respects, especially as physicians. There's expectations of um, long hours, intense focus, and a hierarchy. And in my role, I'm really trying to your point, Micah, that we're we're all just trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to do the right thing at work, do our best, do the best for our family, keep our head above water in very tumultuous times. And since being in this chief medical officer role, I've really tried to put it out there that it's okay to say that you're not okay. It's okay to be vulnerable in medicine. I think staff appreciate it, colleagues appreciate it, patients appreciate it. And Marvin has been my partner with that, so I'm grateful to Marvin, both in terms of the therapy they offer and in terms of crisis support. I'm trying to roll out work with Providence for peer-to-peer support here locally. So trying to let people know that it's okay to say that you're not okay and we're not robots. In terms of the second question, in terms of shift work, what I found is as soon as I stopped pressuring myself to hurry through the shift, to hurry and get out, as soon as I let myself interact with my patients beyond their disease state, but asking them, oh, you have an accent, where are you from? Oh, how long have you been here? Or finding out, asking them questions that have nothing to do with the questions in an H&P, but really about who they are as people and getting a sense of, you're 85. Tell me about what life was like when you were 25. And really getting a sense of my patients as people outside of their disease state and their lab results and radiology results, and trying to enjoy my patients and those interactions helped me get through the shift, helped me appreciate my job, helped me take better care of my patients. I've created better relationships with my patients, and allowed that vulnerability between doctor and patient. And it goes back to just being present and not trying to rush my way through the day.
Yeah. And it doesn't take that long to ask those questions. And what I love about a doctor who will come in and ask those questions is just that sense of connection. They're just not there to fill out a form, ask a series of questions, and then move on to the next person. And it takes a minute. It takes a minute to say, "Oh, you're from Ireland. What part of Ireland? Oh, okay. So you're, just that. It's just that sense of connection, and then it'll help you to remember that person. And then you go out to the nursing staff, or you go to the folks who are with the patients all day long, and say, it's just some little thing that makes that person feel special. I do this all day long. I
Yeah.
walk past somebody and I say, "Hey, your hair looks great," or "Oh my gosh, that color is lovely on you." And because anytime that's happened to me, it kind of perks you up for the day that somebody noticed and said something nice.
And these stories stay with you. I've heard
Yeah.
some really interesting stories, and they stay with me. And these patients, many of them have since passed, but their stories stay with me. And that's a gift.
Yeah.
You were given the privilege of being part of their lives for a little while.
Exactly.
I know that we're kind of running short on time, but what's really important to me is that we just end this. This has been remarkable, but I'd love to just from all of you hear how you celebrate the small wins in your journey, because in every day there are things that go right. There are things that if you take those mindful moments, You know, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, I woke up, yay. I get a chance to do this today. How do you celebrate the little wins on your journey towards balance and well-being? Micah?
So, this is remarkable because gratitude, especially for ourselves, is sometimes very difficult in healthcare. It's oftentimes like assume that you're going to be perfect and then you just get right on to your next task. And you get caught if you make a mistake, right? And you're in QI, but no one's going to call you out and say, hey, that was awesome. Like you did your job and you saved a life or you connected with an individual. You made the world a better place today. So I really found like that's on me. And that's on us to have that be a part of our culture. So I have a hashtag that I put, which is hashtag intentional gratitude and hashtag celebrate everything. And I put it in all of my meetings and I make it a part of all of the meetings that I have at work. Um, because I think we can start to build in a different culture at work by incorporating these things. And at home, I have a gratitude practice before I go to bed and one that I do at dinner with my kids, Rosebud Thorn. And it's not every single night, but it's most nights. And, it is a muscle to strengthen, just like we would train our bicep. Gratitude is a muscle to strengthen. And once you begin to do it, you're like, wow, that sunset is amazing. And like parts of my day were hard, but this sunset right now is unbelievable. Or that act of joy, that act with that moment with that patient, that was beautiful. And I think cultivating that and opening to that is really critical.
Melanie?
When I have these small wins or something great happens, I go back to my why. I go back to why I went into medicine in the first place. This was not my initial goal. I wanted to be a museum curator. I studied art history in undergrad. I wanted to work in a museum, but my life changed when my mom battled non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 19. And that changed the trajectory of my life. And her battle was an inspiration to me. And so when these things happen at work, I go back, I think about my mom, I think about her battle, and I think about that's my why. And it's just a way of bringing my life into a full circle and kind of appreciating that maybe things happen for a reason. And even going through the hard, some good can come out of it. And so I just keep going back to my why and celebrating my why.
I love that. How about you, Wendy?
Yeah, mine's similar to Melanie. I think about impact a lot. So when something really great happens, I think about the impact it had on my kids or my work team, or my patients. And so I try to celebrate that. Maybe not some big, loud celebration, but something just small to celebrate. The other thing I do is I try to always talk to my kids about celebrations that I want to celebrate at work or from work. And then I'll also do that at work. So talk to my team about a win that we've had at home. So maybe we've been struggling, with some sort of condition that my son has. And now we've got this little win we want to celebrate. So I try to make that go across both. It teaches my kids what I do and why what I do is important, but it also teaches my home team that my family is my priority and that I want them to celebrate with me and see how proud I am of my family as well.
So going back to the question that somebody had asked in the audience, one of the questions was about how do you say no to events outside of work? You know, you're talking about priority and family. So Wendy, how did you go about that? Like, how did you find a way to just be, okay, this is where I need to be? Because sometimes being part of work events is part of, you know,
Sure.
going up the ladder or feeling like a team player, but you want to be with your team that's at home. So did you find that difficult? Did anybody find it difficult to say no, set those
Oh, yeah.
boundaries?
Yeah, it's very hard to say no. And the thing about it is when you say no or when you say yes to work, your guilt feels better, right? Because you don't feel the guilt about saying no at work, but then you just kick that guilt down the road to when you get home, and then you feel guilt at home. So for me, the being able to say no was a lot of in the beginning, I would look at, okay, I can't do it now, but can I do it at a different time? So I can't come to your staff meeting tonight because my son has a basketball game, but can I go next month when there's not a basketball game? So I tried to work around the no, I guess, a little bit. And sometimes it's just a hard no. And the one thing I had to learn was when I would say no, to just be quiet after I said no.
Yes.
And not apologize, or because I eventually would end up saying yes if I kept talking. So just say no, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now, and let that be the answer. But it's very hard, and I still to this day get caught up in it sometimes. So I try to just make sure if I am saying yes, that it's a yes that works for my family and my life. And if I am saying no, I just say no and stay quiet.
All righty. Anybody else, real quick?
Well, and to your point, Wendy, and as we were talking about chapters and seasons earlier, recognize that your no now, in a few years from now, can become a yes.
That's right.
That when your kids are at a certain stage or a certain age, there may be a lot of no's. But in time, those no's will turn to yeses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. You don't have to climb the ladder now, or you don't have to climb the ladder at all. And again, if it's a no, and you don't have to explain your no. It's just a no. And your season of no's maybe now, but eventually you'll have a season of yeses. Eventually.
I think that we teach people how to treat us, and if you start out as you mean to go on, family first. You don't have to you don't have to explain that to anybody. This is where you give your all, 110% of work, and then it's your children's turn, it's your family's turn, it's your turn to do and be wherever you choose to be. Any final thoughts, Micah, as we wrap up?
I think it was really helpful for me to write down, like, I need a plan for my future self. So I would have to write down, like, here is the deal. Like, you're going to say, that won't work for me, period. I had a psychologist at work call me out for apologizing for when something wouldn't work for me. She said, Micah, it's just this, just that. Just write that down and offer that. You are enough. It is enough. Let it be as such. And so I think really having a canned phrase that I had to practice, that won't work for me, was really critical to have that go-to that wasn't something I had practiced before.
No is a one-word sentence, right?
That's right. Protect my yes.
Protect your yes. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We have learned so much from you. I think what I loved about today was how much the things that you talked about, it resonated with me. It resonated with, I'm sure, everybody who was on our call today. And the gift of time that you gave us and wisdom, it was invaluable today. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And
The
we'll
pleasure.
see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Be well.